before we begin, let me close off the poll. I have an iPhone, Abby has an iPhone, so we make most of our observations via iPhone. And so most of what slides I have are through the iPhone. We do have a couple slides on the Android, and they're very, very similar. So even though we're focusing heavily on iPhone, you'll be able to follow along with your Android. Okay. So to begin with, how to add observations with your iPhone. This will be the screen that you'll see when you open up the iNaturalist icon on your phone. And the Android is very similar. So it'll have a list of your observations that you've made. And then down at the bottom here is this little camera icon. This is where you're going to take your observation. And most of the time, this is how you're going to use your phone in the field, is by making observations. So we're going to imagine that I am out in the field. I'm going to take a picture of this beautiful fern. So I'm going to press the camera icon. Or say I'm out in the field and I want to take a lot of photos, but I don't necessarily want to have it on my camera on the iNaturalist app. I just take a bunch of photos. I can actually take from the camera roll, the photo roll that I have on my camera, and upload these observations, these photos as well. So either way, you can do that in the field. If we upload photos that are already on your phone, you can upload up to 4 at a time. So once you've taken your phone and taken a picture and accepted the picture, you have the option of keeping that photo, or also you could, if you don't like if it's too blurry, because you want to have as clear a photo as you can. If it's too blurry, you can take another one. But once you're happy with the photo that you're taking, you will come to this screen. And there's a couple of essential things that you'll want to see on this screen. So the first thing is you want to identify what the species is that you're uploading. If you click this button, what did you see? The iNaturalist will suggest a species that it could be. And this could be very specific, or it could be very broad. So in this case, they've suggested shield ferns, or in the genus Polystichum. Sorry, you guys are right on top of my screen. Now, I happen to know what this is. So if you do as well, if you can be more specific than what their suggestion is, what iNaturalist suggestion is, then you can actually type in the species. And when I did that, when I typed in, well, the general common name of sword fern, it gave me a whole list of options. I chose Western sword fern. So the next thing that you're going to want to put in is the location. Your date and your time should automatically populate this field here. But the location may or may not, depending on whether you've got a location set up on your phone. If you do not, you can click location and it will take you to this next screen, which is a big map, and you just scroll through it just like you would when you're trying to find your place when you're out in the field, or taking a walk and you're not quite sure where you are. You can just use your fingers and tighten into the spot where you are on Earth and click the button, and then it will populate where you are. So once you're done with that, you're pretty much ready to share your observations. So you're going to click the share button, and it will sync it into your phone. If you have Wi-Fi, it will also sync into iNaturalist.
All right, so I was going to talk a little bit about the projects. So you'll see that as you're uploading your Western sword fern or your observation, at the bottom you'll see this projects button. So if you click that, all of the projects that you are a member of will pop up. So these are all the projects that we've created so far for some of our properties. There's 6 of them. And previously, when iNaturalist did projects, some of the earlier ones back when the program was started, you would have to go in and click which project you wanted your observation to be a part of. However, you don't have to do that anymore with our projects. They are more location-based. So once you pick your location, it'll automatically be added to the Skagit Land Trust projects that we've created. We do encourage you to become members of the projects, but we'll get to that in a minute. So you don't even have to worry about that projects button for our projects, but for other projects that might be older that you might be involved with, you should try and click the button and see if it would work. You do not need to have internet connection to make observations. Most of the time when I'm out in the field, I don't have enough cell service to upload my observations. So you can go ahead and take an observation like we just talked about, and then upload it when you get home. So you can put the photo of your fern in, and then put in what you think it is. You could say you think it's a Western sword fern, if you know what it is. And then when you get home, you can click the upload button and it'll go into the iNaturalist program. And instead of share, it might say save if you don't have internet connection. Another thing I typically do when I'm out in the field making observations is I just take photos on my phone and upload them to the iNaturalist app when I'm back to internet. Another thing that might be good to do if you're worried about using too much data when you're out in the field taking photos or out exploring on our properties is to turn off the automatic upload button. And you can do that by clicking the little gear button at the top right of your screen. So automatic upload means that while you're in the field, it'll automatically upload to iNaturalist. But if that is turned off, it'll save you some data if you have a limited data plan. And you'll just have to click the upload button like we just talked about when you get back to internet service. So this is a little bit about how to add observations. If you have an Android phone, it might look a little bit different. Some of the things might have a little bit of different lingo. But first you'll click the plus button at the top, and then you'll add your photos in for whatever you're observing. And most of our observations will be either plants that you're seeing out on the trail or wildlife. So you can try and identify what you see if you have an idea of what it might be, or the app will help you make that identification as well. And then when you saw it and where you saw it should be automatically entered in for you, so you don't have to worry about that. But you can always update it. And then you will click, there's the projects button again, but as we discussed, you don't necessarily have to choose a project if you're using one of ours, because it'll already upload it if the location is there. And then instead of clicking share, it's going to be a sync button. Instead of the word share, it'll be sync. So that'll share it with the iNaturalist community. And then for those of you we're almost to the questions section. I see some things coming up in the chat. But for those of you using a camera and a computer, that is perfectly fine as well. So you'll want to go to the iNaturalist.org and you'll have made an account with your email and create a password. It's a free account. And you'll want to click either the Add Observations button or the Upload button. And then from your computer, you can either drag and drop photos or upload them for whatever you saw in the field, whether it's plants or animals. And then they'll pop up into this dashboard, and you can do the same thing like we just described as you would do through the app, where you try and find the species name, the date, and then you'll have to manually enter the location unless you have a really fancy camera that does that for you. And so then after you've done those, if you have any notes, you can add those too, and it will share it with the iNaturalist community. Okay, so now's the time for questions. Feel free to either raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask a question. I've got some in the chat. But if you have a photo on your device, whether it's your computer or your phone, that you'd like to try making an observation with, this would be a great time to try that out and ask any questions. Let's see what we have.
So go ahead and grab your photo and add it as an observation, just like we described. Ask any questions as you're doing that. But once you're completed that and have your observation, if you could raise your hand so that we know that you're finished.
Becky asked, how does one select for SLT projects? So we'll show you how to become a member of the projects here in a few minutes. But when you're making an observation for our SLT projects, all you need is to make sure the location is in there, and it will automatically be added to our project. So any observations taken for, say, at Cumberland Creek Conservation Area will automatically join the Cumberland Creek project. Cindy says, I'm curious if you can actually change the date and time. That's a good question. No, I haven't tried to do that. So we'll have to try that. Good question. Okay. Eric asked how to see the projects. So we'll go over that in a minute as well.
How's everybody doing with their? Okay. So if you could use your raise hand icon and let us know that you were successful at creating an observation.
Catherine asks, can you add locations if you end up going to many locations? Yes, so each observation will be separate. So you just have to go in and add the location of where you found that observation. And if you're making observations in the field and you have your location services on, it'll automatically pinpoint where you took the photo on the property. But if you don't have that, or if you're taking photos with a camera and uploading them later, you can just zoom into Cumberland Creek Conservation Area and drop a pin there. And that is equally as helpful to know that, say, a Western sword fern is at Cumberland Creek, which it just might be. So hopefully that answers your question. Looks like lots of people have it figured out. Any other questions coming up?
And some of you may not have added the app to your phone yet. We don't really have time to run through how to do that right now, but those of you who've told me that, I can help you later on.
Feel free to reach out to Stacy or I afterward if you're having any trouble or any questions. How do you create a project? Thinking of display garden and or other areas. Good question. So it's a little bit of a tricky process. So on iNaturalist, anybody can create a project. So I had to create places and projects. So I uploaded our property boundaries onto iNaturalist and then created projects from that so that any observations just within our property boundaries would be uploaded into the project. But you can create a project for your display garden and just encourage people to take iNaturalist observations while they're there, and they'll all pop up in your project. They should pop up in your project.
One thing you do have to do, Brenda, is you have to have at least 50 observations
Oh, that's right.
before you can create a project.
It goes quick though.
It does.
I get it. Yeah. They don't want you to, yeah.
They just
I'm
want you
really
to have
impressed
some
though. I
experience.
took a picture in the display garden of a very close up of a mountain boxwood just for some other purpose. And it totally got it immediately. I was just really impressed.
That's great.
Yeah. iNaturalist since 2017 has been working with this process that's called computer vision. And it's the way of training computers to recognize patterns in nature and other images. So with all the millions of observations that have been downloaded into the iNaturalist program, the computer's gotten very, very, very good at recognizing things.
Sharon asks if you need to sign in first. You will need to make a free account just with your email and a password. So I think the answer to that would be yes. I think you could view our projects, but to make observations, I think you need an account.
How's everybody doing?
Karen asked, captive or cultivated? What if a native plant is in my yard, but I planted it? I think that would be fine to document the native plants that are in your yard.
So you
What
can
does
start
the
a project
question-
from the web.
What was that?
You can start a project from the website, Brenda, without having a whole bunch of observations.
Okay, thanks. I was just going to say Karen's question, I have been, maybe it only pops up on the Android, but it always asks you if what you're taking a picture of is captive or cultivated. And so for plants that are in gardens, I was checking that, yes, cultivated, but what do you guys think? I mean, for the SLT projects, obviously, hopefully those are all not captive or cultivated. They could be planted.
Right.
By us.
Yes.
True.
I would say if it's in a garden, that it would be cultivated. But iNaturalist is pretty good. If you have questions like that, their website can give you guidance. And they also have a forum for community questions as well. And then that would be your choice.
Great.
Cindy says, what does the question mark mean next to where I put in the plant name?
I figured it out.
Oh, good.
So I put in red flowering currant, but because I didn't use a hyphen, it didn't like it. But now I'm not seeing what you guys are talking about, the planted or cultivated thing. Where is that on here?
Are you using an Android or an iPhone, Cindy?
iPhone.
I have not seen it on the iPhone, so it
Got
might
it.
just be an Android thing.
Not a
No,
problem.
I've seen it.
You have seen it?
Yeah.
I hope it was okay. I took the plant picture at my house and I used the location as my house. Is that appropriate? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Thank
Because
you.
your page is your observations
Okay.
wherever you've taken them. And we encourage you to go beyond Skagit Land
Oh.
Trust and just, yes,
good.
absolutely.
Because I intend to go right down the road to Utopia and start taking a bunch of pictures because I thought that would be fun because I'm right. That's my little next door area. So
We would appreciate that.
Awesome.
I am using a plant from my yard, which is they call it, well, it's a fruit tree. and half of it is orange and half of it is lemon, and it got both of them.
Oh, wow. Great.
You know,
I mean, it's unsettling in some ways.
well, I'm just, well, it did have each of the fruit on there, but I'm just going, well, that's interesting, you know.
And what's also interesting is that you can also take pictures of things like tracks and scat and birds' nests and bird eggs. So even though you're not seeing the animal itself, the evidence is sufficient and will be recognized as well. So Abby took a nice picture of beaver scat at Utopia, and now we have an observation of beaver out at Utopia. So
Any other
Okay.
questions coming up?
yeah. Okay. Well, how does everybody feel? Are there any more questions about how to actually make an observation?
Wanted to share that I practiced earlier today and made an observation of a couple of items in my yard. And I was especially trying to figure out what a few things were that had volunteered. And it was very helpful with that. And I had somebody correct me already, even though I only put them in like, 2 hours ago or something. So anyway, that was very cool to see somebody tell me what it was that I have in my yard and said, this is actually, quite a spreader. You might not want it.
And that's what's nice about, we hadn't intended on really talking about what happens after you make your observation and the difference between a regular photo and then one that's been counted as research grade. But as Sarah was saying, there is this group of people, and you guys can become one amongst those group of people who go through and make identifications and help those of us who aren't experts, identify things that we don't recognize. So that's kind of the fun part of the process as well, is getting that feedback from people.
Is there a
Really
way to
exciting
tell
when you
what
get it
you?
right.
Oh,
What was
go ahead.
that?
I was wondering if there was a way to tell if the observation you made is part of a project or has become part of a project.
Well, if it was, so you're asking what projects might be in an area that you've made an observation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, you can see what projects are local. But for a specific observation, I'm not sure if you can tell if one observation was part of a project or not. You'll have to play around with observations and explore a little bit.
For our properties, if you're part of, say you were out at Utopia taking an observation, then you could go to the Utopia project page, which we're going to talk about how to do that in a second, and see that your observation has popped up there. So like I was out and took a bunch of observations at a property and went to the property page and was like, oh, they're all my observations. Hopefully everyone agrees with my observation that they're correct, but it's kind of cool to see them pop up on the project pages.
Well, I think we might be ready to move on and talk about the projects, if everybody feels comfortable with their observations at this point. And again, you'll be able to refer to these slides in the future on our website. Okay.
All right, so when you go to our project pages, which I've linked them all on the webpage that you signed up through on this website. So it's now on our Skagit Land Trust website. There's the link about Earth Day and iNaturalist, and I've added the links to the project pages to that webpage. So you'll be able to easily click them and find them if you'd like. So this is what it will look like for the Utopia Conservation Area Ecological Survey project that we put together. So you can see that so far there are, oh,
I'll go back.
thanks, 3 observations and 3 species. So you can see my beaver scat photo that I took an observation of on the left there. And 2 other people a couple years ago had made some observations, and because they were the location was correct, or they had the location, they were able to pop up on this project. So pretty cool. So once you make observations at Utopia or any of the other properties that we have listed, they'll pop up on this page. So right now we have projects at Bar Creek Conservation Area in Rockport, Hernfield Conservation Area, also near Rockport. That's the wildlife pull-off you've probably passed multiple times on your way upriver. Tope Bryan Conservation Area, which is in the Alger area. Day Creek Conservation Area, which is in Day Creek off of South Skagit Highway. And Cumberland Creek, which is down the road from Day Creek, also off of South Skagit Highway. And we've picked these properties to start with because either they're new to us, part of the Day Creek Conservation Area is new to us, and we'd love your help finding out what species are there. Or we've picked these other ones because they have nice trails or lots of really interesting wildlife to observe. So how to join a project from the app. You don't have to join the projects because, like I said, your observations, because they will have the location, will automatically be uploaded to the projects. But we encourage you to join the projects so that you can see your observations pop up and see what other people are observing. And we also can make journal entries on the projects, so we can write messages about what we observed on the property and kind of updates on the projects. So on the app, you'll click the 3 little dots on the bottom that says more, and then you'll click projects. And then you can see, this was Stacy's, and so she had clicked the nearby button. And so those are all different projects that people have created that you're welcome to join. But to find ours, you'll want to click the little magnifying glass on the top right, and then type in one of our project names. So why don't you all try joining one of them? Cumberland Creek Conservation Area. If you just type that in to the projects search little magnifying glass, it should pop up. See if it'll work. And then you can click the join button at the top there, and you'll then be a member of that project and can refer back to it a little bit easier. Brenda says you can't join if there are no observations at Day Creek. Let's see if we can try it.
It's just what I'm finding. It may be something I'm doing wrong, but I've been able to join the other projects, but just not that one. It makes me wonder, and Bar Creek too, if there aren't any observations, it may not be.
There should be observations at Bar Creek.
Okay.
Day Creek, I'm not sure that there would be yet. I'm trying it now to see if it'll work. It did let me join Day Creek, so I'm not sure what that is about.
Well, maybe, yeah. So on my list of joined projects, it's only letting me join the 3. Those other 2, it's not sticking, but maybe once I'm there and have an observation, it will let me. I'm not going to worry about it. I just was playing with it.
Okay, yeah, good to know. The app does sometimes have glitches. A lot of it is volunteer run, so it's not always totally perfect. Laurel says she was able to join them all, but had to try a couple times, so it might be worth trying a couple times and see if it will work for you.
Good point.
And also perhaps join from the computer as well.
Yeah.
On some of the pictures, it has RG. Is that the person who has taken the picture?
That's research grade. So what that means is that the observation that was made has been confirmed by other people who agreed with your identification. So then once an observation is research grade, it's used in the data set. Before that, it isn't necessarily used, can't be used in the data set for scientific purposes.
Ryan says there's an option to agree with an observation. Is that important to get them confirmed? So yes, if you see a plant or a species on there and it has the option to agree, and you know what that plant is, you agreeing does help it get to that research grade status. It's kind of fun to go in and see if you can find any that you know and agree. I found an Oregon grape the other day and was able to bring it up to research grades. That was exciting. It's another way to participate in the project that we'll get to talking about in a minute. Brenda, I'm glad it worked. She said she backed out of the app and tried again, and it showed them all that she joined. So
I'm not seeing offhand how to agree with an observation. I'd like to learn how to do that.
I've only seen that from the computer, at least through my phone. But I'm not sure I've actually tried on my phone.
Oh, I see it. Sorry. If you click on the thing that looks like folders, and this is on an Android. So on the picture, below the picture, I have an eye and a couple of, I think they're supposed to be cartoon bubbles above comments, meant to be comments, and then a star. But if I click on the comments, there's an option for agree.
Oh, great.
I'm going to bring your thimbleberry out.
Nice. Thanks.
Yeah, I have a little tiny phone. So I find that I'll take my observations with my phone and then do all the rest of the work on my computer just because it makes it easier.
I noticed that when you are looking just under the word rock project, that if you do not know the exact name of what you have named, the Skagit Land Trust has named the project, it brings them up from all over the United States. Now, how can we, I don't know, narrow it down? Because I have like Rockport Recreation Area and then Rockport Park, and then it goes into someplace in Texas.
Is that as far as I putting the location in?
It was under projects. If I am looking for Skagit Land Trust project, if I just go under projects and put Skagit Land Trust, will it bring up the ones that you have?
It
set
should.
aside?
It
Okay.
should. Otherwise, if you type the property name in, it should pop up as well.
Kernfield did not come up.
I bet it will if you're there, though.
Well, and again, it's iNaturalist is a little glitchy, takes a little bit of effort. I'm trying to remember, Abby, do we have slides on how to actually search for a project?
On the computer or I don't think so. I think this was it as far as looking for a project. We did not include slides on how to do it from a computer for sure.
Under Skagit Land Trust, the projects do come up.
Perfect.
But you
I just
know,
hadn't got
if
that far yet.
when you're looking at a site that has like hundreds of different observations, if I didn't see a way to sort them at all, it looks like maybe the default is just number of observations of that species, but not by like bird, plant. It just major. Has anybody noticed if there's a way to sort that at all rather than thumbing through hundreds of
when you're on the Android, how do you get the properties? How do you search for Skagit Land Trust?
Is
When
there,
go
ahead.
when I click on to projects, I get all over the world. And under nearby, I get all over the world. And I don't see any way to type in Skagit Land Trust.
Is
There
there,
should be a search
Well, maybe I
option.
found it.
And Sarah, in terms of sorting, we haven't done a lot of that. There is a way of doing it to export information. But in terms of like looking at the photos and sorting the photo observations, I'm not sure about that part. You'll just have to play around. Okay. How are we feeling? Feeling good about that part of it? How to join a project?
and like I said, I did link all the projects on that page on Skagit Land Trust website. So if you're on a computer, you can go to that page and click the link and it'll automatically pop up. And so that's a good way to join it if you can't figure out on your phone. And then when you go back to your phone, since it's all the same account, they'll should have popped up by then.
Okay, so we're going to move on and talk about how Skagit Land Trust is going to use these observations. It would be beautiful if we could save all these photos, but it's not as useful in the form that it is on the computer. So what's nice about iNaturalist is that you can actually export all the data and turn it into an Excel document. So what the plan for us is with these projects is that we're going to, on occasion, once we notice that all kinds of observations are being made, is we're going to download them into an Excel document and add them to our property folders. And if we notice any interesting or rare species or any other things of note, it will really help us in our management plans. So this is just an Excel document that I put together. There's a lot more information that's available. And I chose not to show you how to do this because you probably more than likely will not get as deep into this unless you have a project that you're working on. But so you can include all kinds of information about location, date and time, who took the observation, so that if somebody at the Land Trust had a question about, a yellow spotted millipede that McGowan, who I happen to know who that is, but perhaps I didn't know who that was, I would be able to go back into iNaturalist and find out that person that made that observation and connect with that person and ask more specifics about the observation. What's really interesting about the observations is you can add comments on observations, you can add tags, you can put a lot of different information on the observations, and that may be helpful to you. We're mostly concerned about what's there, when it was spotted, and where it was spotted. So what else can you do with iNaturalist? You can join more projects. As you've noticed, there are hundreds of projects all over the world, and it's beneficial to you and beneficial to the project administrators for you to join. Some of them are closed, so you have to get permission to join a project. Some of them are open to everyone, which ours are. I joined a project that had to do with noxious weeds in the Pacific Northwest, and somebody's trying to monitor noxious weeds that are found. You can become an identifier. So as some of you saw, when you agree with an observation and identification, that makes the observation become research grade. And maybe you have some free time and you're an expert in plants, or you're an expert in birds, and you can help to identify. There's also an app that's called Seek, which is affiliated with iNaturalist. And it's an app that does not have any geolocation aspect to it. So the observations don't necessarily go directly to iNaturalist. It's more of an education tool that you can take out into the field, take a photo, and learn about the plants and animals that are out there. But it will not contribute data to the iNaturalist database unless specifically authorized by the parent. So this Seek app is meant for children that are under 13 who cannot participate in iNaturalist. Exploring observations, I think, will be one of the most fun part of iNaturalist. There's just so much information about the plants and animals that are contained within iNaturalist. So you can learn anything you want to know. And there is also a way of organizing your own observations into something called a life list. And I don't know, Sarah, if this was what you're talking about, but if you choose to do this with your observations, it does organize things by taxonomy. So it would be helpful for your own observations. Now we invite you to go out and explore not only Skagit Land Trust projects and properties, but anywhere that you are in the world. If you're out backpacking and looking for a rare care species, if you're in Hawaii or Costa Rica in a couple of years, you can make observations at all of those places. Now, do you have more questions?
Brenda had asked, can you enter data without a photo? Some of these birds or other animals, I see someone put in the sound of a hummingbird. You found my hummingbird. That was me. And so on the Skagit Land Trust website, I had said that Guaymas Island and Guaymas Mountain would be part of our projects, but somebody else has already created a project for Guaymas Island on iNaturalist. So we're going to reach out to them and see if we can be added to that project. So you can observe on Guaymas and they'll go into that project, but we have not put our property boundary on yet. And you can take sounds on iNaturalist. So if you open the app, you'll see that you can record, upload a photo, take a photo, or record a sound. I tried it for the first time when I was up on Guaymas last week, because there was a hummingbird zipping up and down, making its like little noise. But then a helicopter flew over at the same time, so it's not the best sound recording, but it was worth a shot. So yes, you can record sounds. And if you don't know what a plant is, you can just leave it blank, and then hopefully someone else will come behind you and try and identify it. Different sightings on by other iNaturalists. Do you know what the different colors mean? And open circles versus pins. I know the different colors mean like plant, amphibian, bird, different taxonomy things. And open circles versus pins, I am not sure what that means at this point. Let's see if I can figure it out. And the pileated photo, Brenda, Chris Leibouletir, I might be saying that wrong, is a photographer who lives on Guimas, and he goes out all the time and takes these incredible photos. So yeah, that was actually from Guimas. Great photos he takes.
Oh, yeah, each one is like a rocket shot of a species. And I thought, how could they possibly have gotten all those great pictures? Come on.
It's amazing the photos he takes.
Me chasing him around with the phone.
Well, yeah, he's got a nice camera
Yes.
and he downloads them.
So you really do have to have some sort of evidence. They're not just going to accept your saying, oh, I see deer at Guimas all the time. Okay.
Right. You
That's
know,
cool.
there's other, like eBird, you put in lists. Other databases you can put in lists, but here iNaturalist is encouraging you to go out into nature and make observations. So that's the way that they approach it.
Yeah. Well, it brings it to a level that can be research grade eventually too. So as opposed to.
Yes. Do we have any other questions?
Laurel, I'm thinking the circles might be more approximate locations, maybe. That's my guess. I'm not totally sure at this point. Maps. If you go on the app and you click the explore button, the map should pop up and you can look all over the world at what's being observed. It's pretty neat. You can spend hours looking at everything on here.
So Abby and I are going to be working on the journals for each of our projects. So as you make some observations at the properties, we'll talk a little bit about the observations that are made and what's going on with the project. You may get some emails from iNaturalist once you've joined, having to do with the projects, so that we hope to make it interesting for you. We're going to really focus in the next month, keeping up with the journals and social media. And then we'll continue to have the projects open afterwards and try to keep everybody engaged with the project. So be sure, you spread the word about iNaturalist and our projects, and hopefully we can get a lot of people in the community involved.
And one other thing I thought of to say is to find directions to our projects or to our properties, the best place is to visit our website. On that page where I talk about iNaturalist on Skagit Land Trust website, I also have linked to what are called our property pages. And that should have directions as well to the properties. Becky says, can we call you for IT support? Yes.
Thank you.
I can't promise we'll answer while you're out on the properties, but we will do our best to help answer questions as you come up with them as you're making observations.
Well, if there are no other questions, be sure to check out our website and our YouTube page to refresh your memories about how to do things via the recording. And we hope to see you out in the field. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Happy Earth Day.